What's happening, gang? Now, have y'all ever heard about this? Probably before y'all, but have y'all ever heard of a website on the dark web called the Silk Road? Well, if you have never heard of that before, it's basically a website where you could buy anything on there, bro. I'm talking about, bro. You can buy humans on there, bro. Like you could buy anything you could think of that's illegal, basically. I don't want to say it because YouTube will be low key hating on me, and I might low key knock on wood still be shadow banned. So I'm not gonna say it, but you could pretty much buy anything on there, bro. But
Creating
let's see.
a
This is the guy
website,
right here.
but in a few weeks, he might be free.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht.
In 2011, Ross Ulbricht created a website called the Silk Road, which is basically the Amazon for drugs. It was a place where you could buy and sell drugs completely online without anybody knowing. This was a crazy idea back in the day because, first of all, people didn't think it was possible to literally buy drugs online and have them delivered to your door. A lot of people thought it was a scam, but it was completely legit. In fact, it even operated kind of like a normal business. It had reviews, trusted sellers. Now, personally, I was a huge fan of the Silk Road, not the actual website. I never used it, of course, but the story is fascinating. There's even a book
Be
about it,
real
and
with
it's
yourself right
very,
now.
very interesting. So, Ross was this young man who, like all of us, wanted to change the world. He had some big plans, and well, actually, he had no plans. He didn't even know what he wanted to do with his life. I think he ran a charity, a bookstore. He tried to do a bunch of things, but none of them really succeeded. Now, Ross was also a libertarian. He believed that the government was too involved in people's lives. And I guess that makes sense. I mean, if you're an adult, if you can make your own decisions, and there's a whole bunch of old people that you've never even met, and they're telling you what you can and cannot do, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when the things that you do don't affect other people at all. So that's basically what he believed. He thought that people should have complete freedom over everything they do. You know, as long as you're not harming anyone else, then it's okay. Now, Ross, at this point, he also grew little mushrooms on the side, and these were not just any mushrooms, they were special mushrooms. So from the beginning, he was always a little bit sus. He was not afraid to bend the rules and grow his little
You know what sus
mushrooms.
mean, right?
But even though he had his little mushrooms, he still didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. But then, two things happened which would change the world. First, the Tor browser came out. Now, the Tor browser is like an internet browser, but it's completely anonymous. It uses some special technology. It was actually built by the government, but it became very popular, and it was a way that you could access the internet without anybody knowing your real identity. And this allowed for the dark web. And the dark web, I'm sure you know what it is. It's a completely anonymous internet where people can just do whatever they want. You could hire a hitman, you could just do illegal things. But there was always one problem. You couldn't really send money on the dark web without being traced. It's not like you could just use a credit card. But then in 2009, Bitcoin came out and it started to become very popular. And it was this way that you could send money to people completely anonymously without anybody knowing. It was at this moment that Ross
You
Ulbricht
still can.
saw an opportunity. He wondered if you could make a completely anonymous website where people could buy and sell anything they wanted without the government stepping in. And you might be thinking, why does it need to be completely anonymous? Why should the government not be able to access it? You know, what kind of things would you want to be keeping secret? And the answer is pretty much just drugs and illegal items. It's basically just Amazon, but for illegal stuff. So Ross had this idea, and you know, most people would stop here. Most people would say, all right, that's enough. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna just, I don't know, play Fortnite. Because running a website like this, if you got caught, you would get in big trouble. But Ross Ulbricht was a different kind of person. You see, he saw my last video about ideas, and he was inspired by it and decided to go for it. In 2011,
You
he
never seen
launched
a
the
video.
Silk Road. And at first, the website was kind of dead. There wasn't a lot of people on it because it was brand new. I mentioned earlier that he grew little mushrooms, right? These little tiny mushrooms. Well, he decided to sell them through the site and test out to see if anyone would buy them. At first, no one trusted the site. They thought it was a scam like all of the other dark web websites. But then some people started ordering the little mushrooms, and when they checked the mail and opened a box, sure enough, there was a little mushroom in there, and word that the site was legit started to spread, and more people started using it. It was known as this free place where you could buy and sell anything, and it was completely anonymous. Ross himself also started promoting the website on different forums, but he made a huge mistake here, one that would end up in him getting caught by the FBI. But the site was pretty small, people were slowly joining, but then one thing happened. It got in the news. There was an article written in the news, and it described a strange website, a place where you could buy and sell drugs online. And what do you know? People were interested, and they started to use the website. So the Silk Road exploded in popularity. It started making hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin. In fact, some people think it made over $1 billion, but it did have some problems. You see, Ross taught himself how to code to build the website, because he couldn't really go and hire someone to build the Silk Road. So he taught himself how to code, but his code wasn't that good, and there were a lot of bugs with the site. He started getting hacked. People even stole millions of dollars from the site. But the biggest threat wasn't hackers, it was the FBI, who finally realized how big the site was getting, and they wanted to shut it down. The hunt for Ross Ulbricht officially began. I won't go into all the little details, but basically an FBI agent made an account on the Silk Road and slid into Ross's DMs. I don't know how, but he was just able to join the site and message the owner. But at one point they became friends, and the agent also became a little bit corrupt, and he would tell Ross if the authorities were onto him, and that way Ross could always remain 2 steps ahead. There was also a moment where Ross ordered 9 fake IDs off the Silk Road, and the cops intercepted the package and they showed up at his door. And he basically told them, I didn't order any fake IDs, but if I wanted a fake ID, there's this website you can go to. It's called the Silk Road, and you can buy anything you want. He literally advertised the website to them, and they left him alone. But yeah, there was a lot of back and forth between
Yeah,
Ross and different accounts
that's how the feds work. They ain't gonna get on that with you until they know for a fact that you did it. Which is crazy because he basically told them that he kind of did it, but
on the Silk
they
Road,
wouldn't worry
and
about
some
it.
of them were law enforcement.
Yeah, we
And there was
need
also
proof.
a time where law enforcement got him to order multiple murders. Now, the murders never happened, so basically he got scammed. But that was one of the reasons why his prison sentence is so long. But anyways, Ross was on top of the world. He was making millions of dollars off of the Silk Road. He was just living his best life. But then someone came along and ruined it all. And of course, I'm talking about the IRS. So there was this IRS agent who I guess was a little bored because he decided to do some investigating on the Silk Road to try and find who owned the website. And what he decided to do was look for the oldest posts about the site on the internet, because whoever made the first post talking about the site maybe had a connection to the owner. So he literally just Googled Silk Road and then sorted the results by oldest. And he came across the first posts that Ross made about the Silk Road on these forums. Remember I mentioned that he made a mistake? Well, his mistake was he used his personal email to make these posts. rossulbricht@gmail.com. So at this point, they were kind of onto him. At least they had a name, and they looked into him a little bit. Maybe they could find out more information. So as you can see, this is his LinkedIn profile, which is still up right now. You can visit this on LinkedIn. Now, for his career, it looks like he put entrepreneur instead of drug lord, but this part is really sus. I am creating an economic simulation to give people a first-hand experience of what it would be like to live in a world without the systemic use
Moving sloppy. But he was actually,
of
if y'all know the full story of this, he was actually moving pretty smart. Hey, every good guy got to come to an end at one point, man. But he was actually moving pretty smart. Show you that the smartest people can get caught by the feds. That's why I want. That's why I want a lot of y'all to understand.
force. So he basically just described the Silk Road. But yeah, so eventually they were able to track him down, and they waited outside of a library that he was in. He was doing some work on the Silk Road. He was a very hardworking man, okay? So he was sitting in this library working on the Silk Road, just a normal day, and the FBI surrounded the library. And what they did was actually kind of genius, right? It was kind of like a Darman skit. So basically everybody in the library that day was an agent except for him, and they were all just actors. And what happened is they staged a fight between a man and a woman right behind him while he was on his laptop. So he turned around to check out, what was going on, and then another FBI agent swooped in and grabbed the laptop off of his desk. And because it was still open, they were able to access every single thing on it. Nothing was encrypted or locked at all. So they found all of the evidence right there, all of the chat logs. There was even a journal entry that Ross had kept up about what it was like running the Silk Road, and they got
Crazy part about they really actually had no evidence about this whole thing, which is crazy, y'all. Cause Ross Ulbricht was so smart, gang, that let's say for instance he turned around, right? Like of the people fighting behind him. If he would have grabbed the computer like this and closed it, and when like when you close the computer and stuff, it go back to the home screen and you gotta enter in the code and stuff to get it unlocked. If he would have closed it, that plan would have never worked and he would have never had went to jail. If he just moved fast in 2 seconds, you never know, he might still be out. Or they probably would have caught him at least on a later date because the feds are good. Crazy.
their hands on that. So it was a little bit hard for him to say that he was innocent. And yeah, he was given 2 life sentences without parole, which
That's
is kind
excessive.
of like getting banned from Discord, but you can't appeal the ban. But instead of Discord, it's real life. But the only thing worse than life in prison is being active on Twitter. And he's still active on Twitter to this day. And there's also this entire movement called Free Ross. A lot of people think the sentence that he was given was too harsh. After all, he never killed anyone. I mean, maybe some of the drugs did on the site, but people still thought that, using the Silk Road was safer than buying stuff on the streets. Ross may not have been the perfect human being, but he definitely didn't deserve life in prison. But this is where the story ends. Until
Yeah, I don't
a
think he
few
did.
days
I
ago,
don't think he was a bad
because
person.
Donald Trump is now president, and he promised to free Ross from prison. Now, this is kind of random, but you never know. Maybe Trump was a big fan of the Silk Road. Maybe he even used it to buy things back in the day. In my opinion, I think this is
Maybe.
a good move. I'm not a fan of people sitting
Nobody's
in
perfect.
prison their whole life if they never harmed anyone. And of course, you could say that drugs bought on the site harmed people, but he does seem like a changed man. And obviously, if he gets out of prison and starts Silk Road 2.0, they'll just put him back. So might as well free him and see what happens. And of course, if he gets out of prison, he might just end up on the
Trump
Talk
free
to a
Kodak.
podcast. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed
Talk
this
to it.
story.
I
Comment
can't believe
below
that.
if you think that
I can't believe she got rich off saying hawk to it. That's crazy, gang. That's fucking crazy. Hey, Trump inauguration in approximately 18 hours. We gonna see if Ross Ulbricht gets out. And we gonna do like a little backstory and stuff on the guy that made the Silk Road. But damn, that's crazy if Trump actually frees him. Comment down below if you feel like his sentence was a little too harsh and if you think that he deserved the 2 life sentences or you think that he did. But hey, love gang.